Hi everybody and welcome to Ages Cozy Crochet Corner. Where today on the corner we'll be doing the Ripple blanket wrap tutorial. So this is a tutorial where we will be working the ripple stitch. So if you don't know how to do it, you will learn how to do it today. And it's just a nice, simple wrap shawl you could throw on, bring it down. And I really like this. We threw the tassels on the end there just to give it a little flair. And it's just a one piece wonder. So we're going to grab our, let's say, medium 4 yarn, and we're going to get right to the table and we're going to go over a small swatch so I can show you how to make this. So let's get to the table. Okay, everybody, so we're at the table and going to go over what we're going to need for this project. We'll need a yarn needle, and that's going to be to weave in our ends. I'm going to be using a book to make my tassels because this project has tassels at the end. And I want to use a book or anything that I have that's going to be the size of the tassels that I want. I'm very fond of using books, but cardboard, anything that you have around your house that's going to give you the length that you want. Then we're also going to need scissors, and the type of yarn that we're going to be using is medium worsted weight yarn. Okay, so I have the color for my border, and this is one of the 6 colors that I'll be putting inside of my shawl. So because I'm using 6 colors, I only need 1 skein each for the shawl, and even the border and this color runs throughout the shawl as well, and makes the tassels, and still only 1 skein of yarn. Let's bring in the larger piece that we'll be using. Now this is the larger piece. This is actually the full shawl all the way done. And I'm going to show you on a sample how to make this because it's repeating the same row over and over aside from making the borders. And again, you see how I have the colors ran, and I only needed 1 skein for each color with some of the scheme still left over, including the border and the tassels. So I'm going to move this out the way, and we're going to bring in our border color, and I'm going to show you guys how to make the border. Now for this project, we want to chain 240 plus 2. Now, this project works in the multiples of 12. So if you want to change it in length, you would just have to add 12 or take away 12 as many times as needed to get the sizing that you want. But this is my general size, and we're going to chain 240 plus 2, okay? So even if you take away and make it a little shorter or longer, you want to make sure after you chain your multiples of 12, you add 2. All right, but for this sample size, I think we'll just do 24. So let's see, 1, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 24. Now, once I get to my 24, I want to chain 2. All right. Now, the first 3 chains right after the hook, 1, 2, and 3, are going to make their own double crochet, okay? We're going to yarn over. We're going to leave these 3 alone. That's going to be our first double crochet. And we're going to make a double crochet into the 4th chain from the hook. So 1, 2, 3, and this is the 4th one. We're going to go in there and make our double crochet, and we're going to do double crochets all the way down our foundation chain, and that is why we added 2, because we want that exact multiple of 12 but we add the 2 on there, so when we turn off of our foundation chain, we can leave that chain of 3 there, and that's going to stand for a double crochet. Okay, so I'm going to keep going down to the end of my chain, making double crochets. Okay, and at the end of my first row, I should have 24 double crochets, and for you should have 240. Now for row 2, we're going to chain 1, and I'm going to turn my work, right? Now in that first stitch, we want to go in there and place 1 double crochet. And now we're going to do front and back posts until we get to our last stitch. So to start off, I want to yarn over and go behind this double crochet, grab my yarn and pull it up and make another double crochet. Then I want to yarn over, and the next double crochet, I want to reach in front of it, okay? Grab my yarn and come back up and make my double crochet. And we'll be alternating these all the way to the end. So we're going to go behind this one, grab our yarn and come up. And then the next one, we want to go in front of it. Grab our yarn, pull back up and make our double crochet. So again, we're going to keep doing this until we get to our last stitch. So go behind that one and make our double crochet and go in front of this one and make our double crochet, and behind and make our double crochet and go in front and make our double crochet. Now when we get to the last stitch, and remember our last stitch is that chain of 3 that we skipped over. So I'm going to go around the double crochet right before it, and then I'm left with just that chain 3, all right, that's standing as a double crochet. So we want to yarn over, and we want to go right into the top of that chain 3 and just make a double crochet. All right, so for our borders, our first and our last stitch are just going to be double crochets. All the stitches in between will be front and back posts. And that is pretty much our border. Our next row before we begin our ripple, we're just going to chain 1, turn our work, and we're going to place half doubles all the way across this row. Yarn over and into the first stitch. We want to go in and make a half double, and we want to do that all the way down. When we get to the end, I will have 24 half doubles, and you should have 240. And we want to take our half doubles all the way down to the last stitch. Okay. And this completes our border, okay? But I want to go over changing colors with you. So we're going to take out that last half double, and I'm going to show you how I change my colors, okay? So I'm going to bring that minty back in We'll go ahead and work that next and bring in our scissors. So for the last stitch, we want to yarn over. We're going to go inside, grab our yarn, and pull up. Now to complete this half double, we grab our yarn and pull through. But we won't do that. This is where we're going to cut off our gray. And we're going to add on our next color. Okay, so I'm just going to add this right onto my hook. And instead of pulling through with the gray, we're going to pull this right through, ending that half double with the minty. Okay, so now that we have that completed, we want to chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and turn our work. Now that we have our chain 3, and that's going to stand as a double crochet, we now are going to begin our pattern. Now this 1 row repeat, we're going to repeat it throughout the whole piece until we get back to our border. Okay, so our chain 3 right here, and right here is our first stitch. We want to yarn over, and we want to go into our first stitch, and we're going to make a double crochet. Now this double crochet in the chain 3 is going to count as an increase. Okay, so now after that, we want to make 1 double crochet into the next 3 stitches. So 1, 2, and 3. Now for our dip, we want to create a decrease, and that is how we're going to give an illusion of our dip here. And to do that, we want to yarn over. We're going to go into the next stitch, grab our yarn, and pull up. We're now going to take off 2 loops, and we should have 2 loops on our hook. We're going to now repeat that again by yarning over, going into our next stitch, grab our yarn, and pull up. We're going to take 2 loops off of our hook, and now we have 3 loops left on our hook. I'm going to yarn over and take off all 3. Now we're going to be doing that twice, so we're going to do that one more time. We're going to go yarn over, go into our next stitch, grab our yarn and pull up, grab yarn and take off 2 loops, yarn over. We're going to go into the next stitch, grab our yarn, pull up, and we're going to yarn over and take off 2 loops. Now we have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and we're going to take off all 3. So we've decreased these last 4 stitches into just 2 stitches. Okay, and that is going to be how we're going to make our dip. So now in the next 3 stitches, we're going to make 1 double crochet. So double crochet 1, and this is our second one in the next stitch, and the next stitch, our third one. So now we have to make our peak. And how we're going to do that is we're going to increase over the next 2 stitches. So we're going to yarn over, and in the next stitch, we're going to go in and make 2 double crochets in that same stitch. So that's 1, and we're going to go back into the same stitch and place another one. So we have 2 double crochets in 1 stitch. We're going to go to the next stitch, and we're going to do the same thing, placing 2 double crochets into the same stitch. Now we're going to double crochet 1 in the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Now we are back at a dip, so we're going to yarn over and we're going to do our decreases again, and we're going to do them twice. So let's go into our next stitch, grab our yarn and pull up. We're going to take off 2. We're going to yarn over and go into the next stitch, grab our yarn, pull up, and take off 2. Now we have 3 loops on our hook, and we will take all 3 off. We're going to yarn over and repeat that process again. We're going to go into our next stitch, grab our yarn, come up. We're going to take 2 off, yarn over. We're going to go into the next stitch, grab our yarn, pull up, yarn over, and we're taking 2 off. 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and take them all off. Now we're going to make 3 double crochets over the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. We should be left with 1 stitch at the end. And we're going to go into that stitch and we're going to place an increase, 2 double crochets. And that right there, we're going to repeat all the way out. Now, because you're doing a larger piece, you should always be beginning with a increase, 3 double crochets, and a dip, 3 double crochets, and your increases. And you'll work that all the way out until you end. Now, by the time you get to the end of your work, you should be ending with the decrease, 3 double crochets, and then your increase on the end. There will always be an increase here and an increase here, okay? So we're going to repeat that row again just so you can see how it's done. Now remember, with your work, you want to do 2 rows of each color. So we're going to begin with a chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. We're going to turn our work. Right in the first stitch where our chain 3 is, we're going to put another double crochet, and now we have an increase because we have the chain 3 and we have our double crochet. Now we have to work our 3 double crochets over the next 3 stitches. We're going to go in, grab our yarn, and make our double crochet once, the next stitch twice, and the next one, our 3rd one. And now we're going to be making our dip. So we want to yarn over. We're going to go into the next stitch, grab our yarn, pull up, grab yarn, and then take off 2 loops. Yarn over. We want to go into our next stitch, grab our yarn, pull up, and take off 2 loops. Now we have 3 loops. We're going to yarn over and take all 3 off. And we're going to repeat that process again. Yarning over, going into the next stitch, pulling up, and taking off 2 loops. Grab our yarn, go into the next stitch, pull up, and take off 2 loops. We have 3 loops on our hook. We now want to yarn over and take off all 3. Now we'll do our 3 double crochets again, going into the next 3 stitches. So it's 1 double crochet, 2, and 3. Now we want to start our peak, which is 2 increases. We're going to the next stitch and we'll put 2 double crochets in that one stitch. In the following stitch, we'll put 2 double crochets in that stitch. And then we'll do our 3 double crochets over the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Now we're back at our dip and we're going to do decreases again. So we want to go in the next stitch, grab our yarn and pull up and take off 2 loops. Grab our yarn, go into the next stitch, pull up and take off 2 more loops. 3 loops on our hook. I'm going to take off all 3. And we're going to repeat that again. Yarning over, going in the next stitch and pull up and take off 2 loops. Yarning over, going into the next stitch, grab our yarn, pull up and take off 2 more. 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and take off all 3. And now we're going to do our 3 double crochets over the next 3 stitches. And 3. Now our last stitch, which is our chain 3 we began with on our previous row, we're going to yarn over and go in there 2 times to make it increase. But before I finish that last double crochet, I want to stop and cut my yarn. Now remember, we're only doing 2 rows of each color. So I'm going to grab another color. And I'm going to add that on my hook. And I'm going to finish that last pull through with the new color and chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to turn my work and we're going to begin that first stitch is going to get a double crochet. And that gives us an increase right at the beginning of our work. Now on this row, I've already showed you the pattern that we're going to be going over. I'm going to show you the pattern one more time. But I also want to show you the points in which you're going to be placing these stitches, so that might help you, because when working with a long piece, like 240 stitches, we don't want to notice a mistake by the time we get to the end of that row and we're already on the next row, and then we have to frog so much. So I want to kind of show you where your dips and your peaks come in at on what stitch, because it will be the exact same stitch every single time. Okay, so now that we have our increase, we know we have to make 3 double crochets over the next 3 stitches. So we'll go ahead and do that. 1, 2, and 3. Now it's time for us to make our dip. And our dip, as you can see, we see our dips from the previous row right here. Your dip will always start on the double crochet right before the first dip. So we see our dips here, 1, 2, our decreases, right? And we see the double crochet right before it. Our dip will always start that double crochet right before the first dip from the previous row. So I'm going to yarn over, and we're going to go into that double crochet, grab our yarn, pull up, and we're going to take off 2. Now we're going to yarn over, and the next part of that is going to start in that first dip, which is the next stitch. Grab our yarn, we take off 2. We have 3 on our hook, and we take off all 3. So if you know that your dip begins its first stitch in the double crochet before the dip, if you're ever starting at a different point, you'll always be able to recognize that it's a different point, and you'll be able to look back and see where you made your mistake. So let's go ahead and do our next dip. We're going to go in and create our next decrease, and go into the next stitch, grab a yarn, pull up, take off 2. We have 3 on our hook. We'll take off all 3. We're ending on the double crochet on the opposite side of that last dip. Okay, so we can see that our 2 dips here, we begin on the double crochet before, and we end on the double crochet after. Now we'll make our 3 double crochets. Now we're at our peak. Now our peak should always begin, and you see our peak from our last row, our increase right here, and our increase right here. Okay, we should always begin our increase on the first increase, should always begin on the second double crochet from the previous increase. Okay, you see that? So it's going to go right here, and we're going to put 2 double crochet there, and our next set of increases from the previous row, we want to start in the first one, and that's where our increase is going to go. Okay. So we look at it again, and we can see plainly where we start and where we stopped. And now we're going to make our 3 double crochets. And once we make our 3 double crochets, we're ready to do another decrease for our dip. And as you see, it's going to begin the double crochet right before our first decrease from the previous row. So we're going to go in there, grab our yarn, come up, take off 2, grab our yarn, go into the decrease from the last row, take off 2, and take off all 3. And our next one is going to begin in the decrease from the previous round. Go in there, grab your yarn and pull up, take off 2, go into the next stitch and take off 2, and now we take off all 3. So it's always going to come in, and you're always going to start your increases at the same place and your decreases at the same place. And I thought that was perfect to show you that way, to help you from frogging way after the fact and being able to catch your mistakes if you have a mistake right at the beginning of it. And now we're going to do our 3 double crochets. And our last stitch, which is the chain 3, we're going to go right in the top of there, and we're going to place an increase, which is 2 double crochets in 1 stitch. And we're going to chain our 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work. Okay, so I hope that this last row helped to show you placement and you got the pattern. Now that is all we're going to be doing. We're going to be making 30 rows in total at 2 of each color together. So technically it's going to be 15 of each color in a row, however you choose to break it up. But it's going to be 2 rows of each color, however you choose to lay them in. Now I'm going to go ahead and go over this last row quickly. And we're going to go ahead and put the ending border on. I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to double back here. And before I finish off that last double crochet, I'm actually going to go back to my border color, which is my gray. And I'm going to add my gray on and finish off that last double crochet with the gray. Now to start making your border after you have done your 30 rows of the ripple, we want to chain 1 and turn our work. Now into that first stitch, we're going to make a half double. And we're going to then half double all the way down this row. So we're going to end this off the same way we began, but kind of working in reverse. So we'll do our row of half doubles. And it's pretty much to just help it go back into a flat shape. Could you see it still has a little bend, but it should be flat at the bottom. Okay. All right. And then we want to go into our chain 3 and put half double in our last stitch. Then we want to chain 1 and turn our work. This row is going to be a row of double crochets. So into the first stitch, we want to go in and place a double crochet, and we want to double crochet all the way down to the end of this row. Okay, and we want to make sure we go through the last stitch, place our double crochets, and now for our last row, we want to do front and back posts. We're going to chain 1 and turn our work. Now we want to start our first stitch with just a double crochet. And we'll do front and back posts the same way that I showed you here. We're going to do front and back posts here. So starting with going behind our double crochet and making another one, and then followed by going in front of our double crochet and making another one, alternating all the way till we get to our last stitch. And our last stitch will be a double crochet. Okay, now we're at the last stitch, and we're going to go inside the top of there and make a double crochet. We're now going to cut our yarn and pull through. And this is our whole entire piece from beginning to end. Now with our ends, I like to take the ends that are right by each other and tie a knot. Okay, not too much tension, but some. Again, these ones are right next to each other. It's where I started one and dropped the other. And again, right here, right next to each other. And then I like to begin to weave in my ends. And that's simply putting your yarn through your needle and working it back and forth in the color that it is. So if I have a gray string, I'm working in the gray. When I'm have a minty string, I'm working it in the minty. And the same with the cornfield blue. And I just want to go back and forth however you like to weave in your ends, and you do it as many times as you feel secure. Okay, and once you feel like it's secured, cutting it at the base. And we want to do that with that whole side. And you'll find, because we're doing 2 rows, all of your ends will be on one side. Now I want to bring in the book, and I'm just going to show you a small sample of how I make tassels. So I'm just going to place this on the book with my thumb over the yarn here. And I just want to wrap the yarn around my book or whatever object I might be using a few times. And of course, if I was making a lot of tassels, I would wrap more around my book. But once I have as much as I want wrapped, I'm going to cut the yarn and then I want to cut right here, which now means all of my tassels should be the same size. Let's work the end that doesn't have anything here, and I just want to go wherever I want my tassels to be. Grab 2, unless you want to put more than that or less than that. I want to kind of even them out. Grab them with our hook and pull them through where we want them to go. I'm going to put my fingers through that hole, grab the strings, and pull them through. Right. Let's do that one more time. Let's go in a different space where we can see better. So I want to insert my hook where I want my tassels to be. Grab 2 tassels. Going to even them out. I'm on my finger. Take them off. Pull that through. Then I'm going to go right in and grab the strings and pull it down. Okay, and that is going to be how you place your tassels on either side. Well, on both sides actually. So on both sides you want to go ahead and put your tassels, and your border is going to represent your top and your bottom. So I'm going to throw up some more pics. Nice simple Ripple Shawl. I really like it. It's nice and simple to make up, and I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, meet me in the comment section and I'll try to answer everyone's questions. And until next time, you guys, thank you for coming to the corner. Okay, guys, so I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. As always, I enjoy bringing tutorials to you all. I will see you in the comment section. If you have any questions, Don't forget to subscribe. Follow me on all my social media sites. Check out my Etsy store, my Teespring store. And until next time, you guys, I'll see you in the comment section.